Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. That's from a guy, sounds like he's in his early to mid 30s, and he's writing in to share his success story of a guy who actually, believe it or not, is in a relationship, married, and happy. One of the rare cases where things have gone well and all that. And that'll be a very good one to show you that every great once in a while, sometimes a guy can find a traditional girl, because you're going to find this girl's traditional, not a carousel ride, nothing like that, and he's actually happy, having a good time, and all is going well. So there is hope for you relationship guys out there to occasionally find a gal that has some of the old-fashioned values and all that. However, you're going to see in this story that he definitely didn't do a lot of things these typical nice guys do and all that. But I'll leave this story with a warning eventually that he keeps being who he is, obviously, and remember all the things he learns here, because very likely if the guy changes who he is, it could become like the stories I hear all the time. So for you guys like a story about that actually works out for a guy, here's one here. It says here, hey man, I listen to your videos while at work and appreciate what you do. And but will admit sometimes listening to some of the stories get me down and make it seem like the majority of the world and most women are terrible, which isn't necessarily untrue, but I wanted to share my story to try and maybe give some hope to my fellow men. Well, bro, I'm glad you wrote this in, because to be perfectly honest, it's nice to not have to do doom and gloom all the time. Doom and gloom gets a lot of views, but yeah, it can be depressing. But then again, the world ain't pretty. It says, a quick backstory here. I had both parents that were retired Army medical officers. I often joke that I had a boot camp, not a childhood. Dude, that was my childhood too. Both my parents were military officers, Navy. My dad was Marines, then transferred to the Navy. Let's just say there was no bullshit in my household. Before I was a teenager, I was diagnosed with a neurodivergent, which is the main crux of being ADHD. School was a terrible experience, and home life wasn't much better. I spent years in counseling and therapy being deconstructed, essentially. I moved out as early as I could and spent many years dealing with everything on my own, and found that the few friends I had weren't really much of my friends at all, and developed real issues when it came to trusting people and just generally wanting to interact with anyone. Dude, it kind of sounds like me when I was younger. One day at work, I noticed a coworker that I was friendly with on a dating website. To each their own is a motto I try to live by, but this coworker and I were friendly, so I made a sly comment about using dating websites to the extent of they're all a waste of time. My coworker disagreed and informed me that he was talking to a girl that he met on there, and things seemed to be going very well. I wished him the best, but stood by my convictions. Sometime later, he informs me that he and the girl he was talking to were getting serious and things were going well. Again, I was supportive and didn't say anything, even though I thought I was doubtful, but it wasn't my place to say anything. Well, we all know about dating websites, guys. He picked up on this and thus made me a bet. He said if he and the girl date for a certain amount of time, 6 months I believe, and things were still going strong, I would create an online dating profile on the website and see if I'm able to meet anyone, and to ensure I wasn't half-assing the profile, he was going to manage it and essentially act as my assistant with it. If he lost, I get a free lunch for a month, so of course I took the bet. Okay, I would do that too, fine, free lunch for a month, no problem. Well, as it turns out, his friend here, his buddy at work, did have a lasting relationship, so now he's online. I didn't give the website much attention, never bothered meeting anyone, and had shallow conversations most of the time. Then one day I received a wink from a beautiful woman who sent me a message just saying hi. So okay, you were in a state that you didn't give a shit. And I want to point something out, guys, you're going to find out later in the story. This guy was mid-20s at this time, living with a couple roommates, already on his purpose, school and work, and he was already had a couple friends with benefits he was hooking up with. So already he was just in a kind of not really giving a shit attitude, indifferent, which most certainly helped his case. We started talking, and I ended up really enjoying talking to her and started talking to her pretty regularly. I liked talking to her so much and wanted to continue that. When it came time to cancel or renew a membership, I decided to extend it by 1 month. Why were you doing so much talking? If you had a good time talking to her, why didn't you plan a date? Even if it was just for a cup of coffee or a walk in the park. All this talking online just is nonsense to me. But it works out. A few weeks later, it was time to renew again, but I didn't want to keep paying for the membership, so I messaged her and told her about everything about the bet, joining the website cost a lot, and the fact that I wanted to keep talking to her, so I asked her if we could be friends on Facebook. Surprisingly, she agreed and seemed cool about the whole situation and even understood. Okay, sounds good. Please tell me at this point you were talking on the phone at least, instead of back and forth. But then again, I knew this guy was more focused on his grind and purpose, and he was already banging 2 chicks on the side. We became friends and talked for a couple months over Messenger, getting to know each other and sharing interests. One of those interests was a love of geeky, nerdy things such as comic books. You guys can hear the rain, bear with me here, it's Florida. We realized that we were both going to the same upcoming comic convention and thought it'd be nice to finally meet in person after months of talking. It's about damn time. Hey, if you're both into the comics and all that, great. And by the way, it's interesting, I've seen some damn pretty girls that are really into that shit. The comics and Comic-Cons and dressing up as their favorite characters and shit like that, so you just never know. We met, and I'll admit I was taken back by her and not just her beauty. I'll say some of the more romantic details, but we'll say that we sat outside the convention area, ended up just talking so much and deeply that after a while we wanted to get something to drink, but found that we'd been talking 6 hours straight and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, bro, I mean, you guys obviously had a connection and you had a lot of interest and stuff like that, so that's cool. You know, this ain't the romance channel or anything like that, but I'm down for a story once in a while. Things go well. We met a few more times with the same result. Really deep and enjoyable conversations that lasted through the night. We loved the same foods, types of beer, movies, books, and everything else that you can imagine. Everything seemed perfect. She seemed perfect, but she was looking for something serious and wasn't going to play any games and made this very clear. Aha! Now we're getting down to it. She's making some I don't want to say rules, but she's got some boundaries. But you know what? If you have a gal who actually is not a carousel rider and it turns out she's not and wants a relationship, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, if as a guy you're not there yet, you shouldn't change who you are so out of fear she'll go away. Unless, of course, you change your mind on your terms. He says, now let me just explain where I was in my life when we finally met, and things started to heat up. I was in my mid-20s, living with roommates, working, considering getting more education, working on a few personal side projects, and the occasional crazy, chemically imbalanced weekend rager. For women, I was actively seeing 2 or 3 at the time when I met her. None of them were remotely serious, though. In fact, I was the side piece to one of the girls. She'd get in a fight with her boyfriend and would come to me for comfort. Essentially, I was content. I had pretty much everything I needed with no obligations or silly games to play. But there was something about this woman. Okay, you guys had a connection, you had a lot of interest and all that, and you were fine banging these chicks on the side. See, guys, he was indifferent. He liked her, but he wasn't going to change who he was, and he was indifferent, you know? That's a very important plus here. As she made it clear, no games. She was from a traditional Mexican family and wanted a more traditional relationship. One of the sexiest things I found about her was her unrelenting strength of character. No fucking meant no. And if I violated any rules or played with any games, she was gone. So, dude, she was like your mom. Didn't you say your mom and dad were tough, hard-ass military officers? She was no nonsense like your mom. You found someone that, let's be honest here, a lot of guys will see qualities in gals like their mothers, and whether they realize it or not, they're drawn to that, as gals are with their fathers. Right here. That's at least my interpretation of this. Holy shit, this rain. He says, she was in some ways intimidating, but not because of masculine energy, like many women adopt now, but more of a strong, noble queen that will hear your plea and will deliver judgment swiftly. Smack! I don't want to hear you comparing your girl to a queen or a princess or that bullshit. So I followed my gut and kicked the other women to the curb. This is a fun fact. The one with the boyfriend got upset and tried to start drama. I commit myself to the single woman with the mentality of let's see where it goes. And that's what you do, guys. See where it goes and just take your time and have a good time. Things went well for a good while. I moved into a new place with a new roommate, and the rent was a bit more, so I had to be on a tighter budget, but that wasn't anything new to me. Here comes my what the fuck moment number 1. He says, one weekend I'm relaxing with my roommate playing video games, expecting my now girlfriend to be over soon. She and I actually lived about an hour and a half away, so really only were able to see each other on the weekends. But that wasn't much of an issue. When she did arrive, I answered the door, but found her with bags and bags of groceries. I helped her inside and began to help unpack the groceries as she explains what everything is, how to prep it and eat it. I asked, are we having a feast or something this weekend? To her response of, no, this is for you for the week. I just want to make sure you're fed. Hey, he's taking care of you. That's cool. I mean, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach and his other head. Now this just made me speechless. My roommate was speechless. Groceries aren't cheap, and I also hate shopping. But this woman took the time to shop for me and pay, and refused to accept any money for the groceries, all completely unprompted. Any lingering doubts or questions I had about this woman and the relationship were laid to rest that day. I felt justified and right in my commitment to her. Our relationship continued to be good, and some more time went by. We eventually had the marriage talk, and I had stated how many relationships and marriages I'd seen end because of moving too quickly, and stated my belief that people shouldn't get married or shouldn't get engaged until 3 to 5 years of dating. I heard no counter arguments, and she seemed to agree. Well, there you go. At least 5 years. And if she's not putting up a fight on that, great, man. Now, some will say, okay, no problem, and hope you change your mind earlier, but okay. He says, sometime into our relationship, we had gotten much closer, and eventually we did the deed. That was amazing, too. But one day, after we had completed the deed once more, she looks at me, starry eyes, and says, you know, I love the fact that you're the only person I've ever felt comfortable enough to be naked with. I'd be like, hang on a second here. You telling me that I'm your first and only? And I'd be kind of like, oh, wouldn't I be able to tell? I was confused and replied, oh, what about the other people you hooked up with? This part I should explain. At no point did I ask what her body count was. I was trying not to be one of the guys and just be cool with her past. Smack! Bad idea. You can't be cool with a gal's past nowadays, my friends. With all the women I dated before, it was never a good idea to ask about previous relationships or body counts, since it only led to disappointment or disgust. Oh, like my stories I tell you that you mentioned in the beginning of the story that make you unhappy how the world is? Yeah, I bet. So when we spoke about previous relationships, I didn't pry too much, and I assumed that she was probably hooking up with the people she was dating. Her eyes went wide, face began to flush with the color out. She quickly turned over and tried to mutter, yeah, but I wouldn't let the subject go. I pressed for more information. She seemed ashamed and embarrassed, but confessed that I was the only person she ever slept with, and repeatedly apologized for not being forthcoming about it. Well, maybe this explains why she took things slow and all that, you know. Apologizing for having no other guys? No problem, honey. But again, I still wonder here, wouldn't he been able to tell? You guys get my drift? But, okay. She seemed generally sad and just kept apologizing. I played cool and kept saying it's okay and it's no big deal. But it was a big deal though. After I came home, I spent a lot of time thinking about this new information. Mentally, I told myself body count doesn't matter. It's just a number. And other silly things like that. But instinctively, deep down, in the essence of my soul as a man, it did matter. Dude, it always matters. Don't let this bullshit people say doesn't matter get in your head. I continued to meditate on this. Okay, Yoda. And I asked myself, why do I care? I began to feel that here was this pure woman that hasn't been corrupted by the world. She was wholly, completely, and totally mine. I became emotionally possessive, for the lack of a better word. I went from I don't want anything bad to happen to her to I will not allow anything bad to happen to her. From being there when she needed me to always being there in case she needed me. Body count does matter, but it matters on almost a primitive level. A level of emotion, a level of commitment, and dedication not normally found in modern day societies and interactions. It's hard to express and impossible to describe it, but it's real. Okay, dude, get to the fucking point. He says, to phrase, I am her body count echoed through my head, reaching the furthest and deepest recesses of my brain, only to be bounced back again louder and louder, more fervent, until it blasted through my head like the damn battle cry, I am her body count. Dude, okay, we get it. To this day, when I think or say it, it somehow brings me joy. Knowing that I have someone to call my own that is untouched by the world only makes me feel like she is the more special, and I must do everything I can to protect and preserve her in this relationship. Well, there you go. I'll admit I don't fully understand why it matters so much, but you don't have to understand something to accept it. Now this brings me to my recent what the fuck moment. This woman and I dated for about 4 to 5 years. Now we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary. 4-year wedding anniversary. I never did I think I would get married, let alone having it be so good and last this long. Bro, congratulations. And congratulations for sticking to your guns, saying that you dated 4 to 5 years, got to know her enough to see if who she was acting really was her, and then you got married. And I'm glad you're married and happy. Or shall I say, I'm glad you're happy. There are other stories and other what the fuck moments about life throwing things at us, like the venue of our wedding catching fire the day of our wedding, so we had to move the wedding to her mom's house the same day. Or when we did get married, we moved in with each other after only 5 months of the lockdown happened, and we were locked in together in the smallest apartment I've ever lived in. Dude, the fact that you're still married after that says a lot. But I wanted to just share my story as evidence that despite what you may think, it may not always be that bad and things might turn out for the better. The only way to do that is to know yourself, know what you want, and do not compromise with your character and principles. Stay true, gentlemen, and best of luck. Well, dude, I agree with that. Don't compromise your principles and all that. And when you met her, you know, you were a single guy in your mid-20s. You had a few chicks on the side you were banging, but you were hanging out with your bros, doing your job, figuring out your life. You met her and you were indifferent, you know, and you liked her and you had a connection. You took it slow on your terms, and that's it. And then you dropped the other bimbos because this girl wanted to get serious with you, and she had proven through her actions time and time again that she was worthy of your time and a worthy girlfriend. And there you go. And you respected her because she didn't take any shit, you know, and I'm still convinced because she has qualities like your mom. So I'm happy for you, man. I really am. However, I'm going to say this like in the beginning. If you stop being the guy that you are, or the guy that attracted her in the first place, if you start caving on your principles and you start doing a lot of things that the guys do in these stories, I guarantee you the good relationship you have is going to start to decline. That's what happens. And a lot of guys don't become, well, many guys don't become pee-whipped overnight. It's a slow process. And so they wake up one day and say, what the fuck? What happened to me? So just remember that. So keep being who you are, and I really do hope that finally one of these stories ends up at a happy ending. I can't believe I just said that. Forget what I just said. Erase the happy ending shit out of your minds. I hope it ends well for you and you guys, because we need more of that in this world. And then if you choose to have children, those kids will be raised in an environment where mom and dad love each other, and it's like a traditional family, and we need more of that, big time. So appreciate you sharing your story, bro, and you can give some people out there hope. But again, guys, remember how he behaved around her, and he didn't change who he was and his principles and all that, and he was definitely indifferent, and you could tell he wasn't kissing her ass or anything like that, and these are important things. You can tell he was a good guy, but he was no nice guy, no pushover, and if he had 2 or 3 gals on the side that he was banging, clearly no weak-ass nice guy here. So, good story. Alright guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below, let me know what you think about this. And guys, you got a good story like to share, definitely email me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And if you also happen to find a crazy type of story in Reddit, definitely also send it to me too, and I can cover on the They Did What channel or the SSM Clips channel. strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.